What's the most inappropriate time you laughed? A woman got on stage to sing during a friend's wedding as part of the ceremony. It was naturally a song the bride and groom chose. As soon as she opened her mouth, it became clear that she absolutely tone deaf. It sounded like an animal being tortured. I was trying not to laugh, but two guys behind me started laughing, and it set off a chain reaction of laughter. Even the groom was red-faced from trying not to laugh. She just kind of sheepishly left the stage afterward. This happened at my wife's grandfather's funeral. A woman sang a completely tone-deaf and broken version of Amazing Grace. Her voice was somehow gravely and ear-piercing at the same time. My wife and I sat there squeezing each other's hands as hard as we could to hold back the laughter. Years ago, when I was at the academy, one of our classmates did not make it to graduation. So we asked her to come back and sing the national anthem at our graduation ceremony. She had a really great voice, and I offered to print out the lyrics for her because it can be a tricky song. She said she didn't need it, she had this down, and then come graduation, she fucked up the words so bad, I couldn't help but laugh. It was the saddest thing. We are all standing at attention with our hands in our hearts, facing the flag, and doing everything we can not to laugh because she completely screwed up the words. At my grandaunt's funeral, she was a big jolly food lover while alive and is sorely missed. Everything was going along, lots of tears while the vicar was giving the eulogy, until he shared her last words, "Come on. A little whipped cream isn't going to kill me." I lost my— This was 10 years ago, and I still feel terrible for laughing. Was it the whipped cream that killed her though? That's the only proper question to this. Cadaver room. One of my classmates accidentally stuck his finger in a kidney because he thought it was behind glass and tried to poke the glass. He was like, "Squish, oh fuck." My favorite so far. We were at my uncle's funeral, whose death was a surprise. I was standing with my cousin who just came back from abroad to attend her dad's funeral and was breaking down. My aunt, the deceased sister, came to tell my cousin that someone we know is apologizing for not being able to attend the funeral, because she's in the hospital due to a car accident. My aunt went on describing the woman's very difficult condition and how she had an iron pole stuck into her forehead. 10 minutes later, the woman appears through the door in perfect health with just some scratches. My cousin sees her and look at me from the other side of the crowded silent room, and we both can't stop laughing for the rest of the funeral. So, she lied about her condition and got called out firsthand. That's hilarious, I don't blame you one bit. Or the aunt was trying to make the injuries sound worse to make the cousin feel better about that person not attending, but the car accident person had no idea and came as soon as they were able. Me and a friend were altar boys. An older woman took to the podium to read a Bible passage. The passage described how Jesus loves everyone, the sick and the healthy, the rich and the poor, the circumcised and the uncircumcised. That's all it took for a pair of 10-year-old boys to start laughing hysterically in front of a packed church. Why did this lady think Jesus so worried about the state of other dudes' penises? This was a common biblical reference to Jews and Gentiles. I always had a problem laughing when I was being scolded in my childhood. Then I would be scolded further for laughing, then I would laugh more. It was a vicious cycle. I remember hearing that laughing in the face of an angry parent is a natural defense mechanism of some sort. Source: my college psych professor. Makes sense, I assume it's a way to lighten the mood and relieve tension with laughter. My computer's teacher in middle school told me he was run over by a car when he was a child. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He was not joking. Pretty similar story for me. I was in high school, this was road safety day, and a cop told us a tragic story that ended with, "And, well, he got run over, you know." He said it in such a way, I just couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. A young teenager was leaning forward in a chair at a restaurant, lost traction, and slammed their face into the table. Absolute hysterical sobbing ensued. Their parents stopped eating their salads to make sure they were okay. I was sitting at the table next to them and cracked up at the sound of them hitting the table, and even more when they started crying. I was a horrible human being in that moment. Feel bad after the fact, but in the moment it tickled me to my core. My parents still giggle about some misbehaving kid that fell out of her chair like 25 years ago. Just some complete stranger they happened to see on vacation. Next time someone tells me other people don't notice or remember the embarrassing things we do, I will remember your comment. Group therapy. A kid was talking passionately about his struggles with Asperger's and OCD. He had a squeaky voice. He started talking about his OCD categories: things that belonged under the earth, things that belonged on the earth, things that belonged in the water, and things that belonged in space. He named specific objects, rocks, bugs, etc. He said there were some things he could not fit neatly into his categories, even if they seemed like they were supposed to be in one. This distressed him. He bemoaned cars. He bemoaned women and pointed at one. Then, with no segue, announced that the reason he was there was because he snuck into the zoo at night and leapt into the lion enclosure. I had to bury my face in my elbow and turn away. Of course his problems were real, but it just seemed so out of place on a day when people were talking about who diddled them when wooden cars and women belong on the earth. Why don't they fit neatly? 'Cause some decided to put a car in space and let women up there in the ISS. This is a bad one. We were watching a news report on coronavirus and this lady was talking about her dead mother or grandmother. She was saying adjectives about how she looked when she died. She was this, she was that, and then I hear the legendary line, she was dead, obviously. Wasn't that funny, but I started chuckling and my family noticed. I tried to stop but actually couldn't. Had to excuse myself after they continued to make statements which I found hilarious. Funniest and most evil 10 minutes of my year. We can't really help it most of the times though. Humor in a situation is just a lot more obvious in an awkward situation. A buddy of mine tried to on the pew in church and unloaded a dump truckload of it into his pants, on accident. This was during a quiet moment and I was absolutely howling with laughter. Even a regular is a bad idea, because it'll clap and echo right off those hardwood pews. Shitting yourself in church is just exquisite though. I would never let him live it down. Lord sure moves in mysterious ways, huh? But one way to get the devil out. At high school graduation during the diplomas, I had no idea one of my classmates' last name was McDonald and I involuntarily let out it, huh, when his name was called. Everyone looked at me and I felt like a major. Me and my cousin are to this day best friends, but we were really crazy back when we were 9-11. In 3rd grade, we both were in this school where the teachers forbid downloading stuff on the computers and we decided to, I'm not kidding, download some. Let me just explain how the PCs were lined up. It was basically 4 rows of tables with computers on them, meaning that there were many kids beside and behind us. Also, there were 2 teachers going around to check on the kids. We search for, and immediately as the results appear our 10-12-year-olds start laughing as loud as possible. I thought to myself, yep, this is it. We're gonna get caught. One of the teacher was behind us checking on the other row, and we were laughing so hard that I couldn't move the mouse to close the window, wondering how no one even batted an eye. So I just managed to download a picture and close the window off, then moved the picture in a random folder, and we were never caught. To this day I can't believe the luck our dumb selves had. Really. That's some crazy good luck. The thing is, when you do in school, you feel like it's going to end up badly, but looking back, they're just great memories to look back upon and laugh at. Yours is quite a tale, huh? My daughter was in probably 1st or 2nd grade and she was doing an online math homework where she had to answer a bunch of math questions and it would give her a percentage correct at the end and then re-ask the one she missed. She was down to 1 question and got it wrong, so she got 0% correct. She bust out crying because she got 0%, and for some reason I thought that was so funny that I bust out laughing and couldn't stop. And then she got even madder and cried harder because I was laughing at her, which made me laugh harder, which made her cry harder. Some say they are still laughing, crying to this day, at ever-increasing levels. Dragon Ball Z style, but instead of shouting it's this. This was at a ballet school performance. It was for kids ranging from 5 to 16-year-olds. For one of the younger age groups they did this thing, where one kid pranced from one corner of the stage to the other, and then another kid would do the opposite, in a big X pattern. And they would have these gigantic eating grins on their faces. Just horribly precious. Well, I started losing it at about the 15th kid, but it went on for like 40 children. By the end I was in tears and all the other adults in the audience near me had found it contagious, so everyone was just sitting there laughing at their own children. LMAO, this mental image alone is making me giggle out loud. In a technology class a couple years ago, for whatever reason, we were having a talk about Kermit the Frog, and my teacher told the class to quiet down and stop Kermit. Someone then said in a completely quiet classroom, in a flawless Kermit voice, "I never die." This was absolutely the best time to laugh. A few years ago I was participating in a religious ceremony with my extended family. I'm not that religious, but my mom and her family are, so I agreed to participate. I was tasked with reading one of the sections aloud and had to read off a list of titles of the Virgin Mary. Most of them were pretty straightforward: Queen of the Angels, Queen Most Holy, etc. But there's _1_ section that starts with the word Virgin. I get to it and I'm trying not to smirk, but as soon as I said the phrase Virgin Most Powerful, I glanced at my brother and and they were grinning at me. Their grins caused me to burst into giggles and I had to excuse myself while my mom glared knives into me. My brother continued the rest of the reading. I cracked up just reading this. It's just too much. Whatever your personal views on chastity and on religion, Virgin Most Powerful has to be hilarious. A friend of mine couldn't stop laughing in church. There was nothing funny. Nothing at all, but we couldn't stop. It was so embarrassing. So much same. But it was my mother-in-law and my son was being baptized. He was playing in the water a little. I heard her snort. That made me laugh. She snorted again. I laughed harder. We both started laughing and making those awful sounds you make when you're trying not to laugh. I laughed so hard I peed. On a church pew. During my own child's baptism. The teacher got so pissed at my class that she walked out and it got awkwardly silent. I just couldn't hold it. We were learning history in 6th grade and randomly someone said someone jumped off the bridge yesterday. Now, I laughed because it was out of nowhere, but I did get a talk from the teacher after that. Children cursing. It's really funny to hear and catches me so off guard. I just start laughing. Hard to discipline them and convince them they shouldn't say those words when you're laughing your behind off.